Hi guys, so this is Nicola and this is Tom from the Immigration Centre. We just wanted to give you an immigration update on what's been happening in the last couple of weeks since our last one. So Tom Griffin is one of our immigration lawyers, and he's just going to give you a bit of news about what's happening and just give us your feedback and comments.
Okay, and we're mostly talking to people in the United States?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say my general advice is go about your regular life. Everyone seems to be very much on edge, and it's not doing anyone any good. It's not good for your health. Nothing has really substantively changed for most people in the United States because of Trump and his executive orders. There's been sort of a ramp up in enforcement for a lot of groups that had already been sort of enforcement targets in the past, and they were just lax about enforcing the law. So there's a little bit more of a ramp up in that. It tends to be in minority sort of communities. That would be, the Central Americans, Africans, that they seem to be sort of targeting for whether it's easy to pick someone off as foreigner because of that, or for race-based reasons. I don't really know, but I'd say for the Irish population, Irish diaspora, I wouldn't worry at all. But there's really nothing that has changed. Now, last night, Trump had his first address to Congress, where he basically sort of reiterated his tough talk about immigrants and making our country safer by increasing jobs and raising salaries and things like that. If we could get rid of the immigrants that are basically, scaring people and taking jobs and things like that. He also, unfortunately, had victims. He invited as guests to the speech families of victims of crimes committed by undocumented aliens, which was pretty awful for him to sort of display them like that. But that's what he did, and that's part of his rhetoric. However, just a couple hours before the address, he met with privately, sort of in a small group with some journalists, at which time he said that he would like to do something for the long-term undocumented people who have been here for many years and haven't committed any crimes, have been working and have been paying their taxes. So he's basically he's talking about what we've been talking about for years under the Obama administration and even the Bush administration, which was immigration reform, or comprehensive immigration reform, a way to change the laws that would allow people who are currently here without any documentation to basically find a path while in the United States without having to leave, without having to face any of the penalties of leaving and trying to come back. So just sort of domestically converting themselves from an illegal status to legal. Some people sort of freak out and say that's amnesty, that's bad. Well, that's not what he's asking for. That's not what Obama was pushing for, or even George Bush at certain times. It's just about having people creating a new path that starts within the United States, versus the only path that exists now for undocumented people, or people who have overstayed their visas, has always been to leave first, that you must leave the country except in certain circumstances, if you were inspected at the time of admission, and perhaps have a U.S. citizen spouse. So that's just a small group of undocumented people. But for the majority of them to ever get improved, to ever legalize their status, they have to leave under the system that currently exists. So what Trump was talking about yesterday was finding a way to keep them in the country, keep them in our communities, keep them working at their jobs, their children in the schools, etc., and still legalize them without having to make a trip abroad. So that's kind of good news. Mm-hmm. It's been on the table in various forms of comprehensive immigration reform, and that means just sort of reforming all our laws in some way to make them sort of more liberalized. Since the Bush administration, and the thing is, Congress wasn't getting along with itself. And the most sort of obstructionist people, especially, of course, during the Obama administration, were the Republicans. So Trump is touting himself as a Republican. He's got a Republican Congress. And if he's taking the lead, this may be something that gets them on the move to actually taking it seriously. On the negative side, these people are worried about getting kept in office, their constituencies that they can, and part of the Republican base is very anti-immigrant. So they're going to have a tension where if you were a Republican congressman, you've got your president telling you to fix the laws to allow for this sort of change, and then you may be trapped with your constituents on the other side saying, you know, I'm not going to vote for you again if you do it. So it's a mix. There's nothing real yet. There's nothing tangible, and it changes. It's just so far rhetoric. And I just advise everyone just to keep your eye on what's important in your life, and don't worry about that any change is going to come rapidly, or someone's going to be knocking on your door. Of course, if you get worried or if that stuff does start to happen, I would definitely recommend talking to an immigration lawyer as soon as possible. And Nicola here knows all the lawyers that she could, you know, if you call here, you can get the numbers out to you.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Tom, and we will be doing regular updates as the situation changes and progresses. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call us on 610-789-6355, and thank you very much for watching.